And as we continue to welcome in our Temple members, our emerging women leaders, and our many guests, but we have a robust conversation and great agenda for today. So I want to make sure that we have ample time. So welcome everyone to our June Temple monthly program meeting. It's so wonderful to see all of the names scrolling up on our Zoom conversation today. And welcome to our many guests. We have such a really great and important conversation to be had today with none other than Dr. Joan Prince. She is a longtime Temple member. If you don't know her, or if you do know her, this is maybe your first time hearing a little bit more about her leadership journey. It is impressive. She is a vice chancellor and educator, a United Nations ambassador, a mentor to so many, including me, and as I mentioned, a longtime Temple member. So we are in for a great conversation. Dr. Prince will sit down with our newest Temple board chair, Devona Wright-Cottrell, in just a few minutes to, again, really have an intimate conversation, share a lot about her leadership journey. So this is going to be a great, great session. June is also typically and historically has been our month that we celebrate our past presidents. So acknowledging Dr. Prince and her leadership role within Tempo and all of our past presidents who are able to join us today. Will make special recognition and honor to them. But before we dive into this incredible conversation, I just want to provide all of our members an update on our program meeting. So this is our typical programming schedule. We got back to this third Thursday cadence just a couple of months ago. Unfortunately, we're still in the virtual environment, and then until we'll take a brief hiatus in July, and then in August we'll have hopefully our last in-person or our last virtual third Thursday before we begin in person in September. So we will be moving from the Italian, we will be hosting our third Thursday monthly program meetings at the Italian Community Center beginning in September on September 16th. So I encourage all of you to show up and be in person for that one. So it's a really, really great time. Our third Thursday programming could not be made possible without the generous support of our monthly program sponsor, Reinhardt. Here to say a few words on behalf of Reinhardt is our Emerging Women Leader member, Rebecca Green. Rebecca.
Thanks, Jen. Welcome to today's program. As a programming sponsor, Reinhardt Berner Van Duren is pleased to support Tempo in any way that we can. We have had a long-standing relationship with Tempo through the years. Our attorneys have been involved as members and in leadership roles, and as a firm, we've been proud to support all the different activities that Tempo undertakes on behalf of women leaders in our community. Particularly, we wanted to call attention to our appreciation for Tempo taking the lead on gender equity and inclusion issues, especially over the last year. The conversations that Tempo has been inspiring and encouraging in our community have been important and needed, and we just really are appreciative of that leadership role that Tempo has taken. And we're very proud to support Tempo in all ways. And I believe we were one of the first sponsors of the Women's Affinity Alliance. That's another great organization that Tempo has sponsored and has really brought a lot of valuable leadership in that space. And we're very happy to have been a proud sponsor of that from the beginning. But I don't want to take away from the conversation. I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm really looking forward to listening to Dr. Prince's leadership journey, and I hope you are as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. And yes, it's so true. We have really an honor to have the sponsorship of Reinhardt over the years, including with our Women's Affinity Alliance, and now with our monthly program sponsor. So thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Reinhardt. At this time, and in celebration of our past presidents, I want to take a few minutes to just really reflect back on where Temple has been over our 46-year history, where we are now, and where we intend to go and evolve as an organization. As I mentioned, this is our 46th year as an organization. In 1975, a small group of women came together with that one common goal and that mission that still remains today, and that is furthering the impact of women leaders in our community. These women were executives that recognized they needed to build an organization which would really foster like-minded female professionals and working on everything for equity for women in the workplace. So this year marks 46 years of mentoring, 46 years of networking, and 46 years of outstanding leadership, made large part possible through our former presidents and our past chairs. So we're really, really excited to have that legacy. Membership, if you take a look, in 1975, started with 4 women to where we are today with a membership of 731 women between Tempo and our emerging women leaders combined. So just a really huge growth. Engagement of our members remains really high. 90% of our members are actively participating and really seeing the benefits and the value and strength of our network through membership engagement opportunities like our coffee connections, our mentoring initiatives, and so many other engagement opportunities. Programming continues to be one of the most important value adds and benefits noted in the high caliber of our programming, like today's session with Dr. Prince and Devona Wright-Cottrell. We hosted 63 virtual events, which is more than one a week last year throughout the pandemic, including the introduction of our Tempo Talks and our Tempo Real Talk sessions. Equity and belonging continues to be at the forefront of everything that we do. We've expanded our equity and belonging initiatives, and this remains a key priority for our organization, and really continuing that mission of furthering the impact of all women leaders in our community. And we're going to continue to do that this year with a lot of really incredible initiatives in this space. And then finally, our commitment to the community remains steadfast and is illustrated to the work of our Tempo Foundation and our many collaborative partnerships, including our Women's Affinity Alliance, our Women's Leadership Collaborative, and so many other work with the nonprofits and corporations within this space. So we are really, really excited and really look forward to all that we have done over the 46 years, and then what it's going to evolve, and what the next 46 years looks like. I would also like to really acknowledge the strength and the power of our past presidents who have helped shape and evolve the organization to what it is today. You will see a list of all of those past presidents on your screen dating back to 1975 with our first Tempo board chair, Pat Lundy. And we, this evolution and the history and legacy of Tempo Milwaukee would not be possible without the current and the future success of these past presidents. So thank you to our past presidents, all of those that have joined us today, and for continuing this legacy of leadership. And our tradition of legacy and leadership continues today. I am so very honored and pleased to turn it over to Devona Wright-Cottrell, who is our current Tempo Board Chair and General Counsel and Chief Legal Officer with GMR Marketing, to begin this really incredible conversation with Dr. Joan Prince. Devona, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jen. This is an incredible moment. I also want to say thank you to Rebecca and Reinhardt for sponsoring our program on today. And Jen, you are exactly right. It is really important that we honor our past, as our past presidents have contributed greatly to our success on today. And I know we have, a jam-packed program, i.e. conversation ahead of us. So I will go ahead and get started by introducing Dr. Joan Prince. Dr. Joan Prince was appointed to Vice Chancellor at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee in 2000, where she served as the Chief Administrator for the Divisions of Global Inclusion and Engagement and Partnerships and Innovation until her recent retirement in March. Upon her retirement, March 2nd, 2021 was officially proclaimed Joan Prince Day by Mayor Barrett. Like, how awesome and honorable is that? Where it shows that your impact on our community and the world was so profound that you have a day named after you in the city of Milwaukee. That is wonderful. As a native of Milwaukee, Dr. Prince was the first African-American recipient of a bachelor's degree in medical technology and a master's in clinical laboratory sciences. She also holds a doctorate degree in urban education with a specialty in medical science education. Dr. Prince's influence stretches far, wide, and beyond southeastern Wisconsin. In 2012, President Barack Obama nominated Prince as an alternative representative to the 67th General Assembly of the United Nations with the honorary rank of ambassador. She also served as a member of the 2013 States delegation to the Commission on the Status of Women. Her ties to Tempo run far and deep, including serving as president of Tempo International, a 2000 Mentor Award recipient, a 2020 Mentor Award co-chair, and a long-standing member for more than 20 years. It is my honor to introduce to you my mentor, sponsor, friend, soror, Tempo member, past Tempo International President, Dr. Joan Prince. Welcome, Dr. Prince.
Welcome, my darling. Hello, hello, hello. You're just such a jewel. Let me do this quickly, and then let's get into a conversation.
Yes.
Let me acknowledge what I think is one of the smartest moves that Tempo has ever done, and that is to offer the role of CEO to Jen Dirks. Thank you, Jen, for everything that you do for just raising this organization, the face of it, just to that top of the scale in leadership. So I just really personally want to say that publicly to you. And then, of course, to my dear darling that I am looking at right now, Devonna Wright Cottrell, to think about you as the board chair makes me smile. Just a little history here. The first African-American woman that was president, board chair of Tempo, was a dear friend of mine, my mentor, Barbara Fawcett. And so it's just great to see women and to see Tempo thriving. So happy to be here. Happy to have a conversation, and let's talk.
Let's talk. So let's start out by talking about, your Tempo journey and your Tempo involvement.
Okay.
So you joined Tempo in 2000, I believe, and wondering just how were you introduced to Tempo? Like, how did that come about in terms of you joining Tempo?
So a lot of things seem to have happened to me in the year 2000. I received the Tempo Mentor Award that year. I actually went to a new job that year, over to UWM as Vice Chancellor. And that's really where I got to know Barbara Fawcett, who was involved with Tempo. So that's really where I heard about Tempo from Barbara. Actually, when I received the information from Tempo regarding the Mentor Award, I have to sadly and humbly say, I really hadn't heard of Tempo. And probably not unusual back then, because my life was focused really inside of a clinical hospital laboratory system. So I just had not really heard of Tempo. But when I mentioned to Barbara, I said, oh, I had just started. And I said, I'm going to receive, no, I hadn't started yet at UWM. The offer had been made. And I said to Barbara, I'm a recipient. And Barbara goes, I know. And she said, so let me tell you about Tempo. So after the awards were over, and thank you again, Tempo, Barbara actually really introduced me into what the work of Tempo was. And some of the other people, when I saw who they were, I said, oh, well, I know so-and-so, I know so-and-so. So that's really how I became a Tempo member. So I was teasing Jen and I said, you need to make sure that every Tempo Mentor Award recipient gets a little information packet about Tempo if they don't know it. Because what a great recruiting ground, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's how I came to Tempo and actually fell in love with the mission, the work, and the people.
No, absolutely.
Part of that journey.
Thank you for that. That's incredibly important, I think, for members and others participating in this program to hear about. Because yes, our voice has increased over the last couple of decades,
Yes.
but so has others in the community, and we must continue to sound that grounding sound of Tempo, how important it is for women leaders to become involved, continue to pull others along. So thanks for sharing that as it relates to your journey. And then, joining Tempo is one thing, but then, raising your hand and becoming a leader within Tempo is entirely, a different experience. What was your path to leadership within Tempo?
So, people ask, and I'm laughing inside because I said, you're getting old when people talk about your journeys and your paths. So I'll own that piece. I'm getting seasoned. I think you told me to stop saying old. I should say seasoned. So seasoned and experienced, but
wise.
Yeah, or wise. I like that. I'll act wise, whether I am or not. So, my leadership journey, I've been very lucky and very blessed. I never sat down and put pen to paper to say, okay, this is what I want to do in year one. This is what I want to do in the next 5 years. This is where I want to be in the next whatever. And that's just Joan. That's just, my brain doesn't process that way. When I walked into Tempo, I thought about the mission.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about where I wanted to work inside of that mission. I do belong to, in my life, I have joined a number of organizations, but what I also do is I join them for the purpose. And when I join, I'm all in. Yeah. I don't join anything that I'm not all in. And I think that's one of my leadership lessons that I've learned along the way. So when I was invited into Tempo, I looked around and I said, can I serve? And if so, how do I want to serve? Where do I want to put my time, my energy, my effort? And so I was able to leverage friendships. I was able to look at what Tempo's strategic plans were back then and raise my hand where I could. I served on Tempo's board for a couple of years. I was asked to chair committees. I've chaired committees, as you know, also been chair of the luncheon, co-chair of the luncheon. And so I know my journey in Tempo, my leadership lesson in that journey really was, don't join an organization if you're not going to be active. That's kind of leadership lesson one for me. And how active you want to be will depend on the rest of your life, what's going on inside of it. I'm a very busy person, like we all are, right? But Tempo, the door was open. So I didn't run up against obstacles coming in and raising my hand and saying, I want to work. So that's kind of that leadership lesson from how I got into Tempo and how I was able to work once I got in there. But the other piece of that I would say is, it wasn't just about raising your hand. Then you have to accomplish what you say you're going to do. So show up, do the work, be all in and do the work. And then step out when you need to step out, make it a better place for the person that has to come after you. And that's why I'm still there with Tempo today. I'm not going to be an emeritus Tempo member. I will pay dues as long as I am able to pay dues and just be a member and be supportive always.
Sure. No, and what I hear you saying threaded throughout is that you're a servant leader. And so you were very intentional about how you were going to be involved in making sure that you had impact in the organization. And with that, came opportunities to raise your hand to be involved in committees, to really be intentional around what that impact is and what it looks like. And I think that is something that's really important for women to understand, is that you have the opportunity to control for
Absolutely.
your signature that you put on an organization and on your life in general. And I think you have been incredibly graceful at doing that, which, speaks to the Dr. Joan Prince Day. And I know that's, not what you're about, but
No.
your work spoke for itself. And then, that came along with other things. So thanks for sharing that.
The other thing I'll just add to that is Tempo isn't just about signing up to do work. So that part I liked as well. And when you think about framing that piece of your DNA that is around leadership, what I found in Tempo were friendships.
Yeah.
And one of my dear friends, and I don't even know if she's on, I didn't check the participant list, but one of my dear friends is Mary Ellen Stanek.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think, I think we met in Tempo. I can't remember. I mean, so that's the sign of a true friendship. You've been friends so long, you don't even remember.
Yeah.
And so leveraging, getting to know people, I think is so critical for what makes Tempo click. If you're all in, build friendships as well, reach across people. I have yet to hear someone in Tempo say, I'm too busy to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm too busy to have a conversation with you. So friendships, and I remember that, we think of leaders as someone who's always kind of plodding ahead, always having to strategically think, never getting a day off. The piece of leadership, the DNA piece that I think is the most fulfilling is that building of lifelong friendships. And I've been able to do that in Tempo.
Thank you for saying that, Dr. Prince, because I do think that mutually beneficial piece is important.
It is.
Because yes, people join Tempo because they want to have an impact, but they also join Tempo because they have a need.
Yeah.
And, having Tempo be an organization that is fulfilling that need, is developing and building friendships, lifelong relationships.
Absolutely.
That is really, really important. I cannot tell you how many friends that I have gained by being involved in Tempo. And those relationships have been really instrumental in helping me to develop as a leader and as a person in general. So definitely important nugget to share.
You'll value them even more as you continue on your journey. As I look, turning around, not all the way turned around, but looking back a little bit, those friendships are what make me smile. They make me smile the most.
Yes. And you talked about earlier on, so you joined Tempo as a result of the Tempo Mentor Award.
I did.
And you were, starting a new role, at UWM at that point in time.
Yes.
How did the position you held at UWM influence your leadership and help you to visualize really your goals as a Tempo member and a Tempo leader?
So again, my DNA is a little different. We all have different DNA, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't separate work from organizations, from volunteering. To me, it was always one bubble, one circle. And there was a piece of that in every job that I had. For almost 20 years, I was a laboratory director of a system here. It's no longer that system, but it was a hospital system here. And part of what I did then is the same thing I did when I went to UWM. I got my staff involved in community volunteerism. I don't separate what's work and what's the DNA that makes me want to try and add value and impact. Mm-hmm. So when I was approached about applying for the position at UWM, what excited me about it was that at that time we just had brought on the first woman chancellor, and she got it. She understood what I wanted to bring to the table, which wasn't just internal leadership, but it was internal leadership with an external focus around what is the impact for community. And I actually remember having a conversation with her about Tempo. And so she got it. So I'm very grateful that I never had a push and pull on my work at the university and Temple. I mean, the missions are so aligned. It is about equity. It's about all types of equity, particularly for Temple, gender equity. So there was no need to separate. And I think that's my lesson, since these are sort of the lesson times. My lesson in leadership is, if you're going to spend a large majority of your day involved with employment, make it fun. Make it part of your DNA that makes you smile, but that isn't so disconnected from when you leave it, because that's when you'll do your best. And that's where Temple played in for me. I was able to merge some of Temple's mission and work with what was going on at the university. I could introduce women at the university to Temple. I could do a number of those things. So don't necessarily live life in compartments. For me, it does not work that way. I try to merge all of my compartments so that hopefully when I take a look at trying to do no harm at the end of the day and trying to add impact, that it's all linked together, you know? There's impact, it's just all linked together. That's how I live. That's how my leadership box kind of forms and how I tick.
It's really important. And I often say, make sure that you have heart and head alignment and what you're involved in. And in that way, it doesn't feel like it's disconnected. Like you can be the same person. And that's the thing that I appreciate about you. You are so consistent. It doesn't matter which environment you're in. It doesn't matter if you're at a Tempo meeting or if you were serving the president as an ambassador. You are Dr. Prince, no matter where you are. And I think that's because you do have that heart and head alignment. And why I think that's important to this conversation is because oftentimes, I think especially as women, we can struggle with the concept of, really being excellent at what we do in our career and finding ways to make impact, externally. And you made a really important point. You said internal leadership with external focus, which says to me that you can have both, but you also have to understand who you are as an individual and be clear about the impact that you desire to make. And, another thing about you is you've always lived your life out loud, right? You've always been Joan, Joni, Dr. Prince. Everybody knows that consistent person. So you don't have to guess or remember anything that you've done or said, because it's always consistent. It's always authentic. It's always genuine.
Be consistent. Leaders should be consistent. That's, one of those basic, I guess, lessons in leadership. Be consistent. I tell everyone, I live my life as an open book so that I never have to either think about, did I do that? Or, it really came in handy when I had to do my vetting for the ambassador role, because trust me, I could, you want a clean slate. Let's put it that way. You want a real clean and open slate as a leader so that nothing comes back to haunt you.
Yeah.
So that's the good part.
Absolutely. Let's talk about, you being an ambassador for a second.
Okay.
And in the sense that, your role as an ambassador, I would think really enhanced your skills of representing others. And like you said before, there's no time that you've reached out to a friend or a Temple member where you've been denied a conversation. Can you talk a little bit about the wisdom of balancing the use of your voice for the benefit of others? Like, how have you balanced that over the years?
I don't know if I balance well. I balance with what works for me. Mm-hmm. And what I did during that role as ambassador was really to operate the same way I did when I walked the streets of Milwaukee. This is my home, right? Mm-hmm. This is where I want my efforts to always maximize, to try to make Milwaukee be the best, showcase Milwaukee as the best, showcase the women of Milwaukee and of Temple as the best. So I carried that to the seat, the US chair in the General Assembly. So when I had to advocate I advocated for women. I advocated for those principles that would apply anywhere, particularly here at home. Eliminating child brides, you know, that still is an issue around the world. Marrying young girls off, yes, at the age of 5, and eliminating and reducing and eliminating their hopes and dreams and opportunities for prosperity and a good life. I don't want that just to happen outside the US boundaries. I want that to happen inside the US boundaries as well. Equity in pay, equity in hiring for women, all women. So I was able to merge what I do here and actually stand in front of individuals, you know, 194 other ambassadors, and make that same plea for equity and understanding and inclusion. So I think authenticity is really the key around leadership. Don't say anything here that you wouldn't say outside of Milwaukee. Make everything link, make it make sense. I will tell you some of the atrocities that are still occurring in the world around women and girls. Yes, we're very blessed here. We really should know that the United States, we're very fortunate that we live where we live. But I always say, you know, we're only one heartbeat away from not having the good life that we have. Only one heartbeat away from that. So when all women thrive, that's the world I want to see. Not just Temple women, not just women in Milwaukee. All boats rise when we can work on that. So that really was a lot of my time as ambassador, advocating for so many different crazy things that are going on in the world, the globe, and outside of the world. Funny story, you get different assignments as ambassador. That much I can tell you. Can't tell you how you get them, but you get them. But I got my phone call and they said, we need you to co-chair a committee. I said, okay, what is it? The ethical use of outer space. So it wasn't in my wheelhouse, but I'll tell you, I co-chaired it at that time. Tony Blair was Prime Minister of the UK, and she's going to kill me. I can see her face. She's a former president of Liberia, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. So it was the 3 of us as co-chairs for this. Hilarious. I went to the first meeting thinking, well, I've never been to outer space, so how am I going to do, what am I going to do? But that same leadership sense comes to play around equity. Okay, so what's the ethical use? Who would be harmed? Who would not be included in a conversation? And that's to me now where the Tempo conversations are. The Tempo talks, all of the things that Tempo is doing, I think is moving towards just that equity and inclusion where all women feel wanted and feel that their boats can rise too. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of new things to be a part of. And I'm very, very grateful and very fortunate that I had that opportunity to serve.
Thank you so much for sharing that part of your story. And you talk about, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that equity piece, importantly. I would ask, do you see any cautions in terms of, as, you know, we continue to move along the continuum and raising awareness and intentionality around diversity, equity, and inclusion? Are there cautions that an organization such as Tempo should or should not be aware of?
Well, life has cautions, right? You know, life is the roller coaster. So I always say that you're going to get a ride up. You're going to be on the top for a little while, enjoying the view. Then all of a sudden you're going to lose steam and things are going to happen and you're going to start to go down. You're going to get to the bottom and say, dear Lord, how did I get to this bottom? Can you get me out of here? Yes. And then you'll start to go up again. So there are cautions with everything in life. And you know, Tempo is no different. I think the caution that I would say to avoid is to not be complacent. Don't be so accepting when a small change is made, because it might have nothing to do with you getting to the larger change, the one that's sustainable. I think oftentimes, and I've seen it in our gender, we're happy to be there. You know, okay, well, so-and-so broke a barrier. Ooh, it's good to see that. But is that really the end game? No. The end game is not to only have one woman somewhere. The end game is that a 4-year-old Devonna Wright Cantrell can look in the mirror and say, I've just got so many darn choices. I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up. I can be president. I can, I think I'll be president of the moon or of Mercury, or, their choices are so big and so diverse. That to me is the end game. You need small steps to get there. So be very cautious. Applaud the small steps. Don't dismiss them. Don't be complacent. Don't be satisfied with them, because those walls will crumble. Those little footsteps will crumble. But if you're able to build a cement slab, it's going to be a lot harder for that to crumble when, God forbid, there is no tempo or there is no one who's advocating for women. So be cautious around that. The other thing I would say is to be cautious around acceptable labels. Joan's thinking has always been to be careful about labels. I'm an individual, if I can't pronounce your name, I will ask you, and I will ask you to keep either correcting me if I say it incorrectly, or help me to keep saying it correctly, because to me, that's ownership of who I am. It's a sign of respect. But then we get labels that make people comfortable, but they really don't address the issue. And I'll give you an example. And again, this is Joan, so don't take the label away. If you're comfortable with it, that's fine. But when we talk about our male colleagues and we call them allies, I never bought into that term. It's not one that I particularly care for. I'm not quite sure what it means or if I'm comfortable having you as an ally. I don't know what that means for me. In my thinking, I don't need my male counterpart to be an ally for me. I'm good. Joan's good. I can take care of Joan. I need you not to put up obstacles. And if you do that, I don't need labels. I don't need anything to make you comfortable. I just need, like they say, no excuses, right? No excuses, no obstacles. Get out of my way. I don't need a handout. I just need you not to put up obstacles,
right,
and to treat me equitably. So the other caution to your question is, be careful about coming up with labels that make you comfortable, because they can also make you complacent.
Yes, no, thank you for that. I mean, that is a wealth of information. I think the complacency piece is really important. It encourages us to continue to keep our foot on the gas in all that we do, and to really build that solid foundation for which we can continue to grow and develop as an organization and be a women's organization, or just women for all. So I heard you say earlier on about, a rising tide lifts every boat.
It does.
And, Temple as an organization is one organization, but we are there to lift all women and meet them at their there, no matter where that there is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the good part. That's the good part of leadership. It's the good part of actually seeing something come to fruition. So there's a lot of work left to be done, and that's why Temple is so needed in the conversation. But with that comes obstacles, and you have to address them. You have to face them. Life isn't always laughter.
It's the whole walk towards the pain, right?
Yes, yes.
To walk towards the pain. And I think with that, I'm going to pivot our conversation a little bit.
Okay.
Talk about, about a year and a half, 14 months or so ago, the Tempo Mentor Awards event. That was a day that
Awesome.
leading up to it was awesome for both of us. I was an awardee, you were co-chair. I mean, it was an amazing, fun day. Like, I still get goosebumps thinking about that day. Like, just thinking about the moment is just such an incredible moment, an opportunity to be recognized for something that's a part of your DNA.
Yes.
And so that day, exciting, right? The event, exciting. It was, but the morning of the event was a little bit different for you. And you were able to mask that and put that like in a bucket. You were able to compartmentalize and still come out on stage and be the leader you are and be there for all of us in the world to see. But I want to get a little bit into that experience and what that day was like for you, if you don't mind sharing.
I don't mind sharing. You know, as I said, my life's an open book. I have no problem sharing. So I was so excited about that day. For you, of course, for the honorees, to see friends, to really take a look and celebrate 30 years of the Tempo Mentor Awards. And that's something that's, you know, close to my heart. It was a difficult moment that I had before I made it down to the Pfister. So that was actually the morning, as some of you will remember, it was February. It was right when the world was starting to understand that COVID was serious. And there was talk about starting to shut things down. How do we start to quarantine and self-quarantine and do all of those things? Well, I got a phone call that morning at 8 a.m. And it was my doctor, it was my surgeon. And she said, can you get on a Zoom? Because I want to talk to you. You know, we need to see each other. I said, okay. So I quickly switched over. And that's when she told me that I had breast cancer and that the tumor was cancerous. And I remember for about 10 seconds, I just paused. And the way my brain works, I just simply said, oh, okay. Well, I'm a very busy woman and I really don't have time for this. So what's the plan? Let's talk about a plan so that we can make things happen. So I left, obviously had to get ready, had to go down, make it down for the Mentor Awards. Remember walking in and I processed a little bit in the car, but I wasn't down. That's how I handle obstacles and challenges. I said a prayer in the car and then I said, we'll talk later, God. You know, I got to let it go right now. I'm heading to see my friends. And that's what I did. I walked in. I did pull two people aside and I'm going to give Mary Ellen a shout out again and another dear friend who was there, Brenda Skelton. And I said, look, my friends, I'm going to need you. I've got a health challenge, just heard, told them quickly what it was. And I said, we'll talk about it later, but I'm going to need you as a friend. And you move on. And then I went and had the best celebration of the Tempo Mentor Awards ever, to be able to hold the sparklers and run down that aisle. Life isn't fair and life happens. Remember that roller coaster?
Yes.
So your lessons learned are when you're going up. When you're at the top, you're kind of waving and you're demonstrating all those great life leadership lessons you've learned. Mm-hmm. But something is always going to make you go down. You never stay at the top in life. You know, it's a cycle.
Right.
So this is what said, you know, you're coming off the top, you're heading down for a little while. And so that's what happened. But through it all, my friends were there, my family was there. Many of those friends were in Tempo. And so when I was at that point of just feeling really crappy, I had chemo and radiation, so I didn't feel real good. But I knew that this too would pass. And you can't call yourself a leader if you don't lead during bad times and only think you should lead during good times. You know, who am I not to have a challenge? You know, some people have it worse. So my lesson in all of that is remember that everything in life is a roller coaster. And at some point you will go up, you'll wave at the top, and you will come down. So just be prepared to handle both sides of your ride. And that's really where I took that. And I want to thank Temple. I want to thank my friends and loved ones in Temple who continue to this day to be there for me during the challenge.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, absolutely.
You really connected well to, how your friendships developed as authentic friendships.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't just, you're part of an organization and you get together for a meeting or initiative, but these are really true friends that you have that were able to be there for you during a difficult time and good times, because that's what friends are, right?
That's what friends are.
And you talked about, I think something else important was you talked about, your consistency as a leader, even during the difficult time, right? Like you got this kind of horrific news. I know you handled it with a lot of grace, but for many women, it is not good news.
No, it was not.
You accepted it and you looked at the day like this is a moment in time and what do I have in front of me? And as a, not really saying I'm a leader, but your leadership skills that you develop that just become a part of your DNA, you're like, I have something that I still need to do during this day. And you came and you were all in. Like I remember you were 100% in. So those that you had not informed would have never known. But thank you for talking through the grace in your journey. I think a lot of women can be inspired and encouraged by that. So thanks again.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Life is what it is. Just enjoy it. It's short. Make it sweet. Enjoy whatever your challenge is and enjoy whatever your successes are.
So what would you say has your autograph on it? So I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball to you because this year during Mentor Awards, one of our honorees, who's also a mentee of yours, she talked about in her speech that one thing that you told her was to think about what had her autograph on it. Can you unpack that a little bit for us? How do you find the space and courage to develop that? And what is it for you? And what does that mean?
So, that's a good question. I love when people throw your own words back at you, right?
Yes.
When I say what has your autograph on it in life, I'm not thinking about an actual building.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not thinking about a plaque somewhere. I'm thinking about if I am asked the question, so what did you do with your life that really made a difference?
Mm-hmm.
That's my autograph. That's my signature. That to me is like signing the Constitution, but it's the Constitution of life. Have I done enough and the right enough, right in quotes, the right enough to be able to sign that Constitution of life?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing, and you can tell my medical background will come into this, the one thing that I heard when I was a teenager, I was thinking of becoming a doctor, and I read something, I don't remember what I was reading, and it said, the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm.
Mm-hmm.
That has stuck with me my entire life. My autograph is to not do harm. I don't count what I think I might have done right. I couldn't tell you, I don't have a tally. That's why even receiving awards makes me a tad uncomfortable. I don't like when people read a bio because that's not who I am. My autograph is the young child that I don't know that I helped, who might be okay now. My autograph is that I opened a door for someone who can now walk through that door without hitting their head on the same cement wall that I hit it on. I think my autograph is to continue to be the basement to somebody else's ceiling, to just push them up. That's what I meant by what's your autograph? That's a question you have to answer. It's not a question that someone can answer for you.
Yes, so it requires some very introspective
It does.
thinking and thought process. And I really appreciate you saying what you said as it relates to what defines you and what's your autograph, because I've personally, and I'll be vulnerable, often struggled with awards because it, it's not what defines me, right? It's,
right.
Building a runway where others can see what's possible and the impact that I'm making on other people's lives. Like that's what defines me. So it's not a title.
Absolutely.
So I thank you for sharing that, because that's something that I often struggle with as well. And so we are rounding out almost time, but there's a couple other questions that I know individuals wanted to hear about. And so you talked about a rising tide lifts every boat, essentially. And what I want to talk through is, do you feel like women-led organizations like Tempo will continue to be relevant and critical for professional women? Is there a new model that we need to think through? Do we often talk to ourselves or drink our own Kool-Aid too much?
So I'll say this, will Tempo be needed 30 years from now? Absolutely, absolutely. The one thing that we do know about life, and you will know this if you live long enough, is that change tends to be more incremental in life and not just a total shift. So you'll always need a conversation. There will always be issues, celebrations, things that it makes sense that I actually want to do that in an organization that's led by women and that involves women. So absolutely that will be there. Is there a new model? There's always the chatter about should men be allowed in to be members, that kind of thing. I'm not adverse to it, but the one thing that I would suggest to Tempo is that I like your programming. Continue to make the programming relevant so it isn't just women talking to women. That's something that we tend to really get pulled down into, and I know we're running out of time, but we get pulled down into that. Last Friday, I was asked to join a publicly traded board, and the individual said to me, well, you'll be the first woman on this board. And I laughed and I said, well, if I have anything to do about it, I won't be the last. But at the end of the day, we as women overtrain, overwork, overthink, overjoin, and we have to be smarter in that. There's nothing wrong with a woman-led organization. Just make sure it's not the only thing you belong to. Diversify what you belong to. Don't destroy the wonderful pieces of diversity, but just diversify what you belong to.
That's incredible insight. And thank you for that, because it's oftentimes hard to know, like, where should I focus my energy? Or for women that don't have a ton of time, is it best in a women's only organization? Is it best somewhere else? And I think we all have to answer that question for ourselves based on our individual needs. But Tempo is certainly relevant and will be relevant in the future.
Absolutely.
So one final question. I don't see anything in the chat yet, but you talked about joining a publicly traded board. So you are retired, but it looks like you're not retired. So can you tell us what this retired Dr. Prince life looks like for now?
Take that word out of the dictionary. I am busier now than I think I was before I left a permanently paid position. I am reimagining, reframing, revisioning this current phase of Joan Prince's life. It's fun, it's exciting. I'm doing exactly what I want to do and nothing more. I said I have forever Sundays. I don't worry about what Monday will bring. It's the wonderful freedom of reframing in this phase, but Joan isn't going anywhere. So you'll still see me. Hopefully I'll still see you. And I will always be a member of Tempo because that is what makes me smile. And that's not going away.
And you have a beautiful smile.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'll kick it back to Jen. I see she just popped on. I did not
Thank you.
see any questions in the chat, but I will kick this over to Jen. It has been a pleasure and an
My
honor
pleasure.
to share this conversation with you. I am incredibly full, and it will take me into the rest of my weekend and the rest of the
Oh, thank
I
you.
couldn't agree more, Devona. Thank you, Joan, and your grace, your wisdom, your strength is just so, we are just blessed. Thank you for your continued commitment to Tempo. You serve as like this wonderful ambassador. It was like I felt like I was feeding you lines about, lifting up all that Tempo has done. But thank you so much for your nuggets of wisdom and your lessons learned, and just your legacy of leadership within our organization. We are truly, truly blessed. Thank you so much. Devona, thank you as our board chair. It's so wonderful. Just 2 months in, and it's been a wonderful journey so far. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You just heard Joan share her story, and wanted to thank all of our past presidents for their stories and for their legacy of leadership within our organization. But we also want to hear from you, our Temple members. Everyone has a story, and we want to hear and have you share your story to help continue to elevate our Temple brand, our awareness, our evolution of who we are, where we have been over the last 46 years, and where we want to go. So we encourage you, if you have not already done so, it's quick. I swear it will take about 90 seconds for you to just shoot a couple of lines about your personal journey with Tempo, your personal or professional story. Visit our website at /story to really share your experience with the organization and be a part of our new brand and our evolution. So we encourage you to do that. And then as we look to programming in the next couple of months, we are so excited to be seeing everyone at our annual golf outing at the end of this month on Monday, June 28th. And then for those of you who don't golf, but really want to be in person and see your Tempo network and your Tempo members, please join us at the summer social, 1 to 5 p.m. for golf, and then 5 to 7 p.m. for the summer social. Then our August Tempo Talks continues. The virtual element that we started during the pandemic will continue throughout the summer on Friday, August 6th, the return of Milwaukee's arts and entertainment. So hearing from several of our Tempo members as we share that Tempo Talks. And then our August program meeting on the third Thursday in August with opportunities and challenges facing high growth companies in southeastern Wisconsin. And then just one more reminder that we will be back in person in September for our third Thursday Tempo program meeting, this time hosting at the Italian Community Center. Thank you so much. A huge thank you to Dr. Joan Prince and Devona Wright-Cottrell for leading today's session. Thank you to all of our past presidents for your legacy of leadership with our organization. And thank you to all of our Tempo and emerging women leaders and our guests today for joining us. Have a great Thursday. Thank you so much.